What if I told you that the greatest threat to human civilization isn't war, famine, or even evil itself, but something far more ordinary, far more subtle, and infinitely more dangerous? Not ignorance, not lack of education, but a silent force that turns intelligent, well-meaning people into willing participants in their own destruction. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a theologian who lived and died resisting Nazi Germany, called it the power of stupidity. And here's the chilling truth. Stupidity isn't about low intelligence. Some of the brightest, most educated people in history have fallen victim to it. Bonhoeffer saw it firsthand. Doctors, professors, clergy, ordinary neighbors, people who were rational, cultured, even compassionate, suddenly found themselves supporting a regime that contradicted everything they once believed. He realized something unsettling. Against evil we can fight. Against lies we can argue. But against stupidity we are defenseless. So let's explore. What exactly did Bonhoeffer mean? Why are intelligent people so vulnerable to stupidity? And more importantly, what can we do about it before we too fall into its grip? Keep that question in mind, because the answer may determine not just your intellectual freedom, but the very survival of free societies in the age of mass media, algorithms, and artificial intelligence. Bonhoeffer's discovery in Nazi Germany. Bonhoeffer wasn't a philosopher locked away in an ivory tower. He was a pastor, a teacher, a man who lived among people he admired, only to watch those same people abandon their moral compass. What shook him wasn't that villains existed. Evil has always existed. What terrified him was that ordinary, decent, educated citizens, neighbors who once preached love and justice, suddenly cheered for hatred, violence, and blind obedience. Why? Because they had surrendered their capacity to think independently. Bonhoeffer saw it clearly. Stupidity was not a personal failing. It was a social phenomenon, a kind of mass possession. Why intelligence isn't the cure? It's tempting to think stupidity is about IQ or education, but history shows the opposite. Some of the most educated societies have committed the worst atrocities. Think of the Soviet intelligentsia rationalizing purges. Think of doctors in Germany who lent medical legitimacy to eugenics. Think of Silicon Valley engineers today, building tools they know are harmful, yet insisting they are helping humanity. Bonhoeffer warned, intelligence without independence is worse than ignorance, because cleverness in the service of stupidity becomes propaganda, weaponized to justify evil. Psychological roots of stupidity. Modern psychology has confirmed much of what Bonhoeffer suspected. Stanley Milgram's obedience experiments revealed that ordinary people will inflict pain on strangers simply because an authority tells them to. Solomon Asch's conformity tests showed that people will deny the evidence of their own eyes to fit in with a group. Leon Festinger's theory of cognitive dissonance explained why we cling to false beliefs, even when confronted with clear contradictions. Bonhoeffer's insight was that stupidity isn't just a personal weakness, it's what happens when social, political, and psychological pressures combine to crush independent thought. Why stupidity is more dangerous than evil. Here's the difference Bonhoeffer pointed out. Evil knows it is evil. It generates resistance, guilt, fear. But stupidity believes it is good. It wears the mask of virtue. That's why arguing with stupid beliefs feels impossible. Facts bounce off. Logic has no effect. Because the stupid person isn't reasoning at all. They are repeating. They are possessed by slogans, hashtags, political sound bites. And this is why Bonhoeffer concluded, against stupidity, we are defenseless. The modern crisis. Now, fast forward. If Bonhoeffer feared stupidity in the age of newspapers and radio, imagine what he would say today, where social media algorithms profit by amplifying outrage, where misinformation spreads faster than truth, where AI can fabricate entire realities indistinguishable from the real. The same dynamic he witnessed is now supercharged. Think about it. People proudly share misinformation online because it feels right. Communities form around conspiracy theories, united not by truth but by the emotional comfort of certainty. Even the educated, doctors, lawyers, scientists, fall victim not because they lack intelligence, but because their independence collapses under social and systemic pressure. This is the problem of our time. Stupidity has been industrialized. You see, Bonhoeffer didn't just diagnose the disease, he also pointed toward a cure. And modern philosophy and psychology can help us expand on his insights. 1. Intellectual courage. Bonhoeffer believed that breaking free from stupidity requires what he called costly grace, the willingness to think independently even when it hurts, even when it isolates us, even when it costs us. This is not easy. Independent thought is uncomfortable. It forces us to live with uncertainty, to admit we might be wrong, to resist the temptation of simple answers. But it is also the only path to genuine freedom. 2. Intellectual humility. Psychologists today speak of intellectual humility, the ability to admit the limits of your knowledge. This doesn't mean doubting everything, but holding your beliefs loosely enough to test them. Practical ways to practice this. Deliberately seek out intelligent voices you disagree with. Ask yourself, what evidence would change my mind? Learn to say the radical words, I don't know. These small acts resist the pull of functional stupidity. 3. Intellectual discipline. Just like physical health requires exercise, intellectual independence requires training. Before sharing an article, pause 60 seconds and verify the source. Schedule intellectual friction time each week. Read or listen to opposing perspectives. Practice slowing down your reactions. Ask, am I responding with thought or just with emotion? This is how you build the mental muscles that protect against manipulation. 4. Structural resistance. But Bonhoeffer also understood that personal habits alone are not enough. Stupidity flourishes under certain conditions: stress, fear, economic insecurity. That means we need structural solutions. Transparent social media platforms that reveal how algorithms shape information. Education systems that emphasize media literacy, critical thinking, and logic rather than rote memorization. Economic policies that reduce the grinding stress that makes people vulnerable to easy answers. Stupidity thrives in chaos. Independent thought thrives in stability. 5. A spiritual resistance. For Bonhoeffer, this wasn't just intellectual, it was spiritual. He believed that independent thought required inner freedom, the kind that comes from living for truth rather than comfort. In his final writings, he asked, who stands fast? Who resists when the crowd demands conformity? Who remains human when others surrender to slogans? His answer was simple: those who are rooted not in cleverness, but in conviction, not in slogans, but in truth. Bonhoeffer was executed in April 1945 for refusing to surrender his independence of thought. His last words were, "This is the end. For me, the beginning of life." He died because he refused to let stupidity take possession of his mind. And that leaves us with the question he passed on to us. Who stands fast? Not in moments of comfort, but in moments of pressure, not when thinking is easy, but when it is costly. The truth is, none of us are immune to stupidity. The moment we believe we are, we've already begun to succumb. But every time you choose curiosity over certainty, every time you pause before reacting, every time you test your beliefs against evidence rather than comfort, you're pushing back against the most dangerous force in human history. So here's my challenge to you. This week, take one belief you hold strongly and spend 30 minutes researching the best arguments against it, not to weaken your conviction, but to strengthen your independence. If it survives, your belief will stand on firmer ground. If it doesn't, you'll have gained something far more valuable than being right, the freedom to keep thinking. Because in a world that profits from our intellectual surrender, the simple act of thinking independently is the most radical act of resistance we have left. So I'll ask you the same question Bonhoeffer asked from his prison cell. When the world stops thinking, will you stand fast?